Well, welcome everyone. Something new we're going to try for a while. You see there, we're calling it Tune In Tuesday. This idea, we want to take an opportunity to connect with you during the week, give you some updates on what's going on, share information, all those types of things. I also want to share kind of a devotional thought along with that too. I was actually reading this morning an article, a devotional thought that was shared by a preacher for other preachers. But I thought there was some great truth in there. And he was actually talking about, our churches. How that, if we look around, our church, every church, is a church that has struggles, it has difficulties. And he started making some comparisons to the church at Corinth. If you read through the book of 1 Corinthians, you see Paul begins by talking about how thankful he is for them and how much he cares for them. And then you get to the very end of 1 Corinthians in the 16th chapter, and he talks about how much he loves them. Yet in between, we get this picture of a church that is full of all kinds of struggles. There's division, they're tolerating sin, they're suing one another, just all kinds of craziness going on. Yet Paul still loves them. There are times we look around and we go, church has imperfect people. People don't always act like Christians. And the reality is that's true. We don't always. But it's important that we have an appreciation for one another and a love for one another, and that's what binds us together. Sometimes we think, I see struggles, I see difficulties out. I'll go find a different church. I'll go find a perfect church. Well, guess what? There aren't any perfect churches. And if they are, they wouldn't let you or me in them. So, even in the midst of struggles, let's remember to be thankful for our church body, for our congregation, for our leaders, for our members, all of us imperfect people, yet all of us called to love one another. So that's our thought for today on that. The other thing that I did want to share a little bit with you about is what I shared in my newsletter article last week concerning the congregational meeting and how that we had to push the congregational meeting back, obviously because we're not meeting in person yet, and just kind of that situation that it created for our leadership, because we had people whose terms were expiring. Again, they only are selected for 2-year terms. And so, again, with that, we had, Mike Wilfong, Paul Daly, Buddy Snyder, and, as elders and deacons, and Terry Hockman as trustee, whose terms were expiring. And, we were trying to figure out what can we do about this. And luckily, we found that provision within the bylaws that allowed us to, in an emergency situation, for the church board to appoint people so that the work of the church can continue. So it was with that in mind that the church board looked at that issue and decided, that was the best process to take. But again, the important thing is, once we can get back to meeting in person, we'll give notice of the congregational meeting. We have to give a couple-week notice of that. We'll have that scheduled. And again, all those present at the congregational meeting will be able to vote on those officers. And again, as I put in the article, if anybody doesn't receive the 75% affirmative vote needed, then their term will end at that point. But it was just a blessing that we had that we were able to help these folks who were already serving in leading our church, that they were able to continue to do that, and the work of the church can continue while we're in the midst of this pandemic. So, but again, if you have any questions about that, please feel free to give us a call at the church, 740-992-2914, or you can drop me an email. We'll be happy to try to answer any of those questions. And again, we just hope that if trends continue in the positive direction, we're hoping it'll be sooner than later that we'll be able to get back together and meet in person. So let's be in prayer about that, and let's continue to love one another and care for one another in the midst of these difficult times. Thanks, and God bless.